The radio hissed alive with 3 words that froze Lieutenant. Quiniquinitis visicum. We're getting overrun. Through her scope, roughly 300 meters ahead, she spotted a dozen muzzle flashes cutting through the jungle canopy like murderous fireflies. The SEAL team was pinned inside a valley so dense with vegetation the sky was nothing but a rumor. They were taking precise, coordinated fire from positions they couldn't spot, couldn't silence, and couldn't outlast. More than 50 enemy fighters had them encircled, outnumbering them 10 to 1, and the equation was merciless. Within 10 minutes, 8 men would be dead. The manual said to wait for air support, call the quick reaction force, and maintain observation. But she was just one sniper with 1 rifle, and according to the book, 1 person couldn't shift the tide against 50 entrenched hostiles. Rena Quinn had never been the type to hide behind protocol while good men died. Sliding a .50 caliber round into her Barrett M82A1, she adjusted for humidity and elevation, then pressed her radio key one last time. Ground team. Alpha, keep your heads down. I'm going to work. What followed in the next 8 minutes would become legend. 12 surgical kills that turned an inevitable slaughter into a miracle, delivered by a woman the enemy never even saw until it was too late. Rena Quinn had carved her place in the elite sniper ranks the hard way, by outshooting, outlasting, and outperforming everyone else. At 5'6", with auburn hair pulled tight in regulation style, she hardly looked like anyone's idea of a battlefield executioner. Her instructors at Fort Grayson had wagered she'd quit within 3 days. Instead, she graduated first in her class with record-setting accuracy scores. Now, after 2 deployments and 3 years of combat, she was embedded with Strike Team 7, operating deep in Corvain Province, a place where American forces didn't officially exist, doing missions that officially never happened. The jungle here was nothing like training. A triple-layered rainforest where vision vanished into green haze, where the air was so thick it felt like breathing through oil, and the vegetation was so dense it made its own weather. The plan had been simple. The SEALs would recon a supposed enemy logistics post, observe, report, and avoid engagement, while Rena provided overwatch from the ridge, guarding their extraction route. But the intel had been catastrophically wrong. What command had labeled a suspected logistics hub turned out to be a fortified forward base housing a battalion-strength enemy force, lying in wait for exactly this kind of American move. The ambush that followed was textbook, perfect, brutal, and deadly. The SEALs crept into the valley along what looked like an animal trail, their discipline so sharp it could have made them ghosts to most enemies. But whoever orchestrated this trap knew how American special ops moved. They let the team slip deep into the kill zone before detonating chaos from the high ground on 3 sides, the 4th cut off by a raging river too deep and fast to cross alive. It was a textbook L-shaped ambush. No exit, no shelter, no hope. From her perch above, Rena Quinn watched the nightmare unfold through her scope. The entire valley spread beneath her like a burning map. Muzzle flashes burst from a dozen points at once. The SEALs fired back with practiced calm, their voices clipped and steady over the radio even as the jungle erupted around them. Then came the first casualty call, then the second, then the report that made her stomach twist. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. The enemy had the high ground, overlapping fields of fire, and air support was still half an hour away. The quick reaction force wouldn't reach them for 45 minutes. The team had maybe 10 before they were wiped out. Standard protocol told her to stay put, gather intel, and coordinate help. But Rena had never been one for waiting while people died. She grabbed her mic. Ground Team Alpha, this is Overwatch. I have eyes on multiple enemy nests. Preparing to engage. There was a pause, then the team leader's voice, tight but composed. Overwatch, negative. Maintain observation. You can't take that many targets alone. Watch me, she muttered, switching her comms to receive only. The Barrett M82A1 wasn't built for subtlety. Its 50 caliber rounds screamed through the air at nearly 3,000 feet per second, tearing through engines and concrete like paper. Most snipers used it against vehicles or fortifications. Rena Quinn used it for men. In the dense jungle, where visibility was nearly zero, its raw power gave her an edge. Margin for error the smaller rifles couldn't match. She already had the kill zone mapped in her head. 12 enemy positions on the high ground, each packed with 3 to 5 fighters, some on heavy guns, all with clean sight lines into the valley where the SEALs were bleeding out. The math was brutal. 12 positions, 8 minutes before total collapse, 1 rifle. That meant 40 seconds per target, not for the shot, but for spotting, ranging, adjusting, firing, and moving before counterfire found her. It was suicide by the book, but Rena had made a name by ignoring what the book said was impossible. She steadied behind her rifle, exhaled slow, and let instinct take over. Target 1, 347 meters, machine gun nest on the left flank, 20 meters above the valley floor. 3 figures visible, 1 firing, 2 feeding belts. The gun chewed through the jungle where the SEALs huddled. Its rhythm methodical and merciless. Rena set her crosshairs on the gunner's chest, corrected for the faint crosswind, found the pause between heartbeats, and pulled the trigger. She caught the tiny stillness between heartbeats and pulled the trigger. The Barrett thundered, its recoil vibrating through her bones as the scope revealed the gunner exploding into a crimson haze. 50 caliber brutality doing exactly what it was built to do. Without waiting to see how the other 2 reacted, she was already sliding 3 meters to the right, settling into a backup position she'd prepared earlier. 5 seconds later, disciplined return fire shredded her previous spot, bullets slapping through leaves and dirt but hitting nothing. Time, 38 seconds. 1 nest down, 11 left. Target 2, range 298 meters, enemy post at the valley mouth, sealing off the SEALs' only escape route. A PKM nest with at least 4 shooters. The team leader's voice had been calling specifically for that gun to go quiet. It was the cork in the bottle, the one thing stopping them from getting out. Rena locked onto the gunner, adjusted for the closer distance and squeezed. The round landed low, tearing into his abdomen instead of his chest. With a 50, it didn't matter. Center mass anywhere meant catastrophic damage and instant neutralization. She was moving again before the brass hit the mud, sprint crawling to position 3. Her rule was simple. Shoot and move. Never fire twice from the same spot. Never let them dial you in. Time. 1 minute, 19 seconds. 2 positions gone, 10 remaining. Target 3. Range 412 meters. Enemy command element on the ridge to the right, giving them a clear view over the valley. 2 fighters with radios directing coordinated fire for the others. Rena took an extra second, calculating wind drift, drop, and travel time. She steadied, exhaled, and squeezed. The spotter collapsed like his strings were cut. The second grabbed for the radio, but she'd already chambered another round. Second shot, second kill. The command post went dead silent. Instantly, enemy coordination began to unravel, each nest now firing blind and isolated. Time, 2 minutes, 15 seconds, 4 down, 8 to go. Overwatch, whatever you're doing, keep it up, came the team leader's strained voice over comms. Enemy fire's thinning, we're moving again. Rena didn't reply. Her breathing was steady. her focus absolute. Instructors called it the zone, that place where time slows, where every variable aligns and impossible shots start feeling routine. Target 4, range 356 meters. Another gun nest firing from behind a fallen log, perfect cover. The gunner was clever, exposing himself for just seconds between bursts, then ducking down again. Rena waited, calm and patient, the one weapon every sniper must master. He'd have to show himself soon, and when he did, she'd have 2 seconds to end it. There. He rose, bracing his weapon and sweeping fire across the SEAL's line. Rena Quinns. Crosshairs were already locked. She fired the instant his silhouette broke cover. The .50 caliber slug slammed into his upper chest. The energy, over 10,000 foot-pounds at that range, launching him backward and over the log that had sheltered him seconds earlier. Time: 2 minutes, 58 seconds. 5 down, 7 to go. By now, the enemy knew they were facing a sniper, an exceptional one. Return fire erupted across her sector, a storm of rounds tearing through leaves and bark, but they still couldn't find her. She kept moving, using terrain, foliage, and constant repositioning to stay invisible. Bullets snapped through the air close enough for her to hear the supersonic crack, but she tuned it out. Fear was a luxury. The SEALs were counting on her. Target 5, range 289 meters. Enemy fighters trying to flank the SEAL position from the left, crawling through thick brush. Immediate threat. If they got around, the team would be trapped in a deadly crossfire. Renesse tracked the lead man through the green blur. Tough shot. Moving target, partial cover, short distance, barely any time to react. She led him a fraction, accounting for his stride and direction, and squeezed. The round punched through his side as he stepped between 2 trees. He dropped instantly. The rest froze, hugging the dirt. One clean shot had killed the entire flanking maneuver. Time: 3 minutes, 44 seconds. 6 down, 6 to go, halfway. 4 minutes of shooting felt like 4 hours. Her shoulder throbbed from the Barrett's recoil despite perfect stance and the rifle's built-in dampers. Sweat ran into her eyes, stinging. Her hands stayed steady, but fatigue was edging in as adrenaline burned away. She forced it down. The SEALs didn't need her tired. They needed her ruthless. Target 6, range 445 meters. Long shot. Enemy marksman on the opposite ridge, scanning for her with a designated rifle. She caught the glint of his scope as he methodically swept her direction. This one was personal. Sniper against sniper, patience versus precision. He was skilled, careful, had nearly zeroed in on her twice. But Rena Quinn had survived worse, fought better, and lasted longer. She found him in her glass, ran the numbers in her head, wind drift, drop, distance, and pulled the trigger. At that range, the bullet's flight lasted more than a second. She watched through her scope as the distant figure twitched and crumpled, his rifle clattering down the rocks. Time: 4 minutes, 38 seconds. 7 down, 5 to go. Enemy fire had noticeably thinned. The SEALs used the pause to reorder, treat the wounded, and prep for withdrawal, though they remained effectively pinned. Rena needed to clear the remaining nests before they could move safely. Target 7, range 312 meters. Fighters regrouping behind a large boulder, trying to mount another assault. 3 men clustered too close for comfort. She aimed at the center man. At that distance, the Barrett's .50 had a real risk of overpenetration. One bullet passing through and striking another, but she took the chance. The round punched through the center fighter and continued into the man behind him. 2 kills with 1 bullet. Unintended, but devastatingly efficient. The third man fled, abandoning the rock. Time, 5 minutes, 21 seconds. 9 positions neutralized, 3 left. Overwatch, we're preparing to move, the SEAL leader called, his voice carrying something like hope. We need those last positions suppressed for withdrawal. Working on it, Rena replied curtly, already scanning for Target 8. Target 8, range 267 meters, the closest and therefore the most dangerous. A heavy machine gun crew laying sustained suppressive fire with a gun shield that made a direct shot on the gunner nearly impossible. Rena shifted to the ammo bearer feeding the belt. Her round hit center mass. The man's death spasm yanked the belt, jamming the weapon. The gunner rose to clear it, fully exposed, and her follow-up round caught him before he could fix the jam or dive for cover. The heavy gun went silent. Time, 6 minutes, 29 seconds. 11 positions down, 1 remaining. 1 minute 31 left on her self-imposed 8-minute clock. She could hear helicopter rotors now, the incoming birds that would provide cover for the SEAL's withdrawal. Target 9, range 389 meters. The last significant node she could pick out. Another command element trying to rally the scattered fighters for one final, desperate push. 2 men with radios and maps spread between them. Officers or senior NCOs trying to stitch the ambush back together. This shot had to be flawless. Take them both cleanly, shatter command and control, and the rest would likely melt away rather than fight on. Rena inhaled deep. Forcing oxygen into muscles that were starting to complain, ran the numbers in her head, and readied herself for the decisive shots. She centered her scope on the first officer. The man waving an arm and barking into his radio and fired. One clean kill. Without hesitation, Rena cycled the bolt, reacquired the second target, already reacting, already on the move, and led him just enough to predict his path. Another pull, another impact. The second man dropped before reaching cover. Time, 7 minutes, 51 seconds. 12 positions neutralized. 9 seconds left on the clock. The valley fell from a storm of gunfire into an eerie silence, broken only by scattered, panicked bursts. The once synchronized barrage that had shredded the jungle was gone, replaced by chaos. Stripped of leadership, the remaining fighters shot wildly, confused and desperate. Down below, the SEALs moved with professional precision, using the lull to regroup, tend to the wounded, and fall back toward their extraction zone. The instant pressure lifted, they moved just as trained. "Overwatch, this is Ground Team Alpha," came the team leader's voice in her ear, the tone cracked with emotion. "I don't know what the hell you just did up there, but we're mobile. Wounded or moving. You just saved 8 lives." He paused, then added softly, "Thank you doesn't cover it. But thank you." Rena allowed herself exactly 5 seconds to feel it. The relief, the quiet satisfaction that came from knowing those men would make it home. Then instinct took over. She broke down her rifle, gathered her gear and began moving. The enemy would be hunting her now, and staying in one place was suicide. Every sniper knew the rule. The most dangerous moment comes right after victory, when they know you're out there and they're looking for you. Rena pushed through the jungle. Her movements deliberate, disciplined and silent as she made for her alternate extraction route. Behind her, the thunder of rotor blades grew louder. Quick reaction force arriving to cover the SEAL's withdrawal. Her radio cracked again, a deep authoritative voice cutting through the static. "Overwatch, this is QRF Actual. SEAL team secure and loading. What's your status?" "Mobile and clear," she replied, her breathing steady despite exhaustion. "Proceeding to alternate extraction. No pursuit detected." "Copy that. Sanitize your site and move to Lima Zulu. Bird waiting. Extraction in 30 mics." "Roger." Rena said, continuing through the humid green labyrinth. 30 minutes to cover 2 clicks of thick jungle, reach the LZ and vanish before anyone traced where the impossible sniper had been. She made it in 23. The helicopter was already spinning up when she stepped from the tree line. The crew chief waved her aboard with urgency. As she climbed in and the bird lifted off, she finally let herself breathe. 12 precision shots. 8 minutes. 8 men alive because she refused to wait. Not bad for a day's work. 72 hours later, she sat in a sterile debriefing room that officially didn't exist, across from a full-bird colonel, the commander of Strike Team 7, and her own CO. No names on record, no insignia on walls, only a screen showing drone footage, comms transcripts, and ballistic data. The colonel spoke first, his voice calm, analytical, unreadable. "Captain Quinn, I've personally reviewed every frame from your engagement," the colonel said, flat and direct. "I've gone over the SEALs' helmet cams, radio intercepts, and ballistic reports. Walk me through your decision-making step by step." Rena kept her tone even, the same professional cadence she'd use in any debrief. "Sir, Ground Team Alpha was pinned with multiple KIA and WIA, effectively surrounded and outnumbered roughly 10-1, based on muzzle flashes and comm traffic. Air support was at least 30 minutes out." She paused, precise. "By doctrine, I should have maintained observation and coordinated support. But you didn't follow doctrine," Colonel Hayes stated bluntly. "No, sir," Rena replied. "I ran a tactical assessment and determined they had under 10 minutes before being overrun, based on enemy movement patterns and volume of fire. I had the capability, position, and equipment to change the tactical picture. I assessed that action offered a higher probability of team survival than observation," she continued, "by engaging 50-plus combatants with a bolt-action platform, by systematically removing the enemy's command nodes and key weapon systems." "Sir," Rena corrected, respectful but firm. "I didn't need to kill every fighter. I needed to neutralize the 12 positions coordinating fire and supplying heavy weapons. Remove the coordination and heavy guns, and 50 fighters become 50 individuals with no unified plan." Commander Harlow leaned forward, his face marked by exhaustion and gratitude. "Captain, my men are alive because you disobeyed explicit orders and conducted a solo direct action mission in enemy territory. From every operator in that valley, you displayed exceptional judgment and combat skill. You saved lives against impossible odds." He glanced at the colonel. Hayes exhaled slowly, the command perspective weighing down his words. "From a command standpoint, Captain Quinn, you created a major problem. You engaged without authorization, exposed yourself to extreme risk, acted well outside your assigned role, and made strategic choices that should have gone up the chain. If you'd been killed or captured, it could have sparked an international incident and compromised regional operations." "Yes, sir. I understand the implications," Rena said quietly. "I also understand the cost of doing nothing." The colonel set a file on the table with deliberate care. "In this folder are 2 documents with your name. One is a recommendation for a Silver Star for conspicuous gallantry in action. The second document was a formal letter of reprimand for disobeying direct orders and exceeding operational authority." The colonel let the weight of that fact sit between them for a moment. Both recommendations were justified by the facts on the table, and both would go into her official record. Rena nodded, accepting the consequences. The assessment was fair. She'd saved lives, but she'd broken the rules to do it. In the special operations world, those trade-offs were never tidy. The colonel's voice softened slightly as he reached into the file again. "There's a third paper," he said, A recruitment request from a highly classified unit that's been following your career with interest. Today's action, he added, convinced them she fit the profile they wanted. Rena's commanding officer spoke up then, the first time in the room he'd broken his usual reserve. Captain Quinn, this unit specializes in missions where a single operator, armed with technical skill and independent judgment, can create strategic effects in denied areas, long-range precision targeting where conventional forces can't go. He listed the work plainly: solo infiltration, engagement where backup won't arrive, decisions made in real time that might save lives or trigger international complications. Reyna asked the question everyone wanted to know: what unit is this? The colonel only offered what he could legally say: you don't learn the unit's identity until you accept. He did add that they'd been watching her for more than a year, reviewing every mission, every shot, every choice in the field, and that the jungle engagement wasn't an anomaly to them. It confirmed the way she thought and operated. Commander Harlow added the final note: these are the teams you call when conventional options fail, when political sensitivity, tactical impossibility, or deniability mean you need someone who can act alone, think independently, and do things that officially never happened. Rena weighed it carefully. She'd joined the Army to make a real difference, to be part of something bigger than herself, to put her skills where they mattered most. But years of deployments had taught her that sometimes the biggest impact came from operating outside the neat lines of command, in the shadows where one skilled person with the courage to act could change everything. The colonel watched her face. This isn't a decision you have to make right now, he said. Take time, think about the career you want, but understand, if you accept, conventional special operations is behind you. You'll work alone more often than not, in places where backup won't come and extraction isn't guaranteed. Missions will be deadlier, stakes higher, and recognition will be nil. Nothing you do will ever be officially acknowledged. When do I need to decide, sir? She asked. 72 hours, he replied. After that, the offer expires and you return to your unit. Rena came to attention. Thank you, sir. I'll answer within 48 hours. As she turned to leave, Commander Harlow rose and extended his hand. Whatever you decide, Captain, my men and I owe you our lives. We don't forget that. She shook his hand firmly. Just doing my job. Sir? No, he said quietly. You did more than that. You did what had to be done. Rules be damned. That's rare. Don't lose it. Rena spent the next 48 hours running the ledger of her life, career, motives, and what she wanted to achieve with the skills she'd honed. She thought about the 8 men who went home because she'd refused to follow the book, and all the other moments where one operator in the right place at the right time made the difference between success and catastrophe. She decided in 36 hours. 18 months later, Captain Quinn, though she no longer used that rank in her current assignment, stood on a different ridge in a different deniable country, glass pressed to her eye as a convoy threaded a narrow mountain pass. The brief was simple on the page. Eliminate the high-value target in Vehicle 3, a man whose survival threatened regional stability and U.S. interests. Simple. Except the convoy numbered 12 vehicles with more than 60 armed guards and mobile air defenses that ruled out helicopters or drone strikes. The conventional move would be to wait for a better window, but intelligence said this was now or never. Miss it, and the target would vanish into a place even this unit couldn't reach. Rena had spent 3 days infiltrating to position, alone, through some of the harshest terrain on Earth, carrying her rifle and just enough gear to survive. She'd been lying in position for 18 straight hours, waiting for the convoy to emerge, calculating wind shifts, temperature drops, and the dozens of tiny variables that could alter a bullet's path. 847 meters, steep downward angle, unpredictable mountain gusts, moving target in an armored vehicle. It was the kind of shot most snipers called impossible. Rena Quinn had built her name on making impossible shots. She chambered around, ran her final numbers, and settled into a shooting stance polished by thousands of hours of repetition. Before transferring to her new unit, the SEALs from Corvain had sent her a small gift. A handmade patch she wore tucked on her rig, unofficial and out of regulation, but priceless. It read, 12 targets, 8 minutes, 1 shot, 1 kill, no excuses. She'd earned that in a valley of green hell when she proved that sometimes the deadliest person on a battlefield is the one who stays patient, precise, and refuses to quit when others call it hopeless. The convoy rolled into her kill window. The third vehicle moved around 40 kilometers an hour. The target would be visible for 2 seconds as it rounded the bend. 2 seconds to alter the strategic balance of an entire region. 2 seconds to justify 3 days of crawling and 18 hours of stillness. Rena slowed her breathing, found the pause between heartbeats, and remembered the lesson that started it all, the one she learned in the jungle. The book says one sniper can't change a battle. But the book never accounted for those who refused to accept impossible. The third vehicle slid into the curve. Through her scope, she saw the passenger clearly, exactly as Intel predicted. Her finger found the trigger, steady and familiar. Down below, the target had no idea his life was being measured in the time it takes a .50 caliber to travel 847 meters through cold mountain air. Rena squeezed. The Barrett roared, the shockwave echoing off the cliffs. She rode the recoil smoothly, tracking the round's arc until it struck home. Impact. The vehicle lurched violently, the driver reacting to chaos in the front seat. The convoy exploded into motion, vehicles scattering, escorts deploying, weapons raised to find a ghost. But Rena was already tearing down her setup, beginning the 3-day exfil that would get her clear long before anyone figured out where death had come from. Mission complete. Target down. 1 rifle. 1 operator. 1 shot that would never be spoken of, never appear in any record, never exist. As she moved through the cold peaks, Rena thought of the 8 men from that jungle who'd made it home because she'd refused to stay idle. She thought of the man in that armored car, whatever threat he had represented, now gone. And of the many other missions since. Quiet operations that prevented disasters, saved lives, changed outcomes in silence. This, she realized, was the real war, not the grand ones fought with headlines and battalions, but the unseen fights in the dark, where one steady hand and a single trigger pull could shape the world. The book said one person couldn't change anything against impossible odds. Rena Quinn had spent her life proving the book wrong, one impossible shot at a time. And she wasn't done yet. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Major Tom's Tales for more stories of courage, precision, and those who fight where no one is supposed to be.